Good afternoon and welcome everyone to our second webcast of 2020. I believe that you'll find today's program both very timely and informative. We anticipate that Governor Ducey will reopen the economy in the very near future by lifting the stay-at-home order. And to that end, as we put this together, we realized that many of our largest employers were deemed essential when this crisis first hit, and they've been running for some time. So the goal for this webcast is to do a few things. One, to give you an overview of how these employers have been operating, are currently operating, share some of the lessons they've learned over the past 7-8 weeks, and delve into the trends and lessons that they're learning and trends they're seeing, and the possible changes that will result when we come out of this crisis. I know for me, in addition to the updates, the status updates of how they're operating, I'm really looking forward to hearing about the lessons learned and the trends the panelists are seeing. As I've mentioned in previous webcasts, Suncorder has embarked on the process of looking into the future to determine the critical strategies and priorities needed in the post-economic crisis. We're looking at several issues that could impact our priorities and shift our focus. Several questions will need to be answered in the next several weeks, and it starts really today as part of the process. Some of those questions that need to be addressed is how does the crisis change our future needs in the targeted industries? Do they have new priorities, new needs, facing new challenges? Second question will be, are there new cottage industries that we should be focusing on that we haven't in the past? And then third, the question we need to answer is, do we as a region need to shift our investment priorities to better compete in the new world? So the insights we hear about today and through other efforts are going to help us answer many of those questions surrounding our future. So let's jump right in. Our panelists consist of some of our top leaders representing really a cross-section of our economic drivers for today's program. With us today, we have Dave Hutchins, CEO of Unisource Energy and COO of Fortis Inc. Hi, Dave. We have Wes Kramer, President, Raytheon Missiles and Defense. Wes, good afternoon. We have Lisa Lavallo, Market Vice President of Cox Communications. Ian McDowell, Vice President and Regional Director of Sunt Construction. So let me begin really with Dave Hutchins. I'll start with you, Dave, because I've heard it said before, if you're not operating, we're all not operating. That's for sure, because we don't have any power. So I guess the first question I'd throw to you, Dave, is what's your operating status? How are things going right now?
Sure, Joe. I'd love to address that. First, I'd like to thank you for putting on this webinar, and also thank all the folks out there in our healthcare industry that are really on the front line of this pandemic. We're really grateful to you for everything that you're doing to keep our families and obviously our communities healthy and safe. And I hope everybody on this call that you're all happy, healthy, and safe, and as well as your families, and that you're keeping your employees safe as well during this crazy time that we're in right now. As you mentioned, Joe, you're right. We've got to basically be at what we would call business as usual, meaning we've got to keep the electricity flowing. Obviously, on days like yesterday and today, when it's 105 in early May, you're all making sure that you're all grateful and hopeful that we're going to keep that electricity going, so you can keep your AC running. We are obviously an essential service. We power our community, and we need to make sure that what you see is business as usual, at least outside the curtain. Behind the curtain, we're doing things very differently. But since we do have that critical operations that we must maintain, we're not having any layoffs or furloughs. Our folks are all still working. They're prepping for the summer, et cetera. But it is changing both where and how we're working, as well as what work we're doing. As far as the where goes, we have a lot of people working from home. Basically, everybody who used to work in sort of the office categories are all working from home. And this is something that, if you had asked me 2-3 months ago, how many people could we have working from home, I would have said maybe 10%. We've got upwards of 60% of our entire workforce working from home. And you might say, well, what about the rest of them? What about the rest of the people? Aren't they working from home? Well, they're working in areas that you can't do that work from home, like running power plants, for example, working in our control rooms to make sure that the power is flowing across the grid. Those are obviously critical jobs, and we can't have them do those jobs from home. The other is field operations. We have people out in the field doing work, doing restoration, doing maintenance, getting our system ready for the summer. So all those things have to keep happening. And so it changes. What's changed is how we're doing that work. So obviously the office folks are working from home. There's not a whole lot of additional safety and process procedures, PPE that you need to work from home. But there is when you think about working in either a power plant or working in one of our control rooms. So we've done all the things that you would expect us to do, like restricting access and making sure that people are on consistent shifts and working together, keeping them separated when they are at work, making sure that they have the PPE, that they're practicing all the hygiene. We're keeping things completely scrubbed down. It's all of those things that you would hope and expect for us to do. And then out in the field, it's really different. I mean, so that's a very dynamic situation. Every time you go out in the field, it's different. You might be coming across customers. You might have to, get in a ditch with a contractor to fix something. But we're making sure that we have all those processes and procedures and PPE for those folks out there. We're working in small crews that always work together so that we don't have people who could potentially catch the virus and then spread it to a whole bunch of other people. If you see people driving around and you see one person in a TEP truck, that's all you'll see in a TEP truck is one person. And you might see somebody in a pickup truck in a TEP uniform following behind them. That's what we got to do to make sure that we're maintaining that distance. And then obviously when they're out in the public, we're trying to make sure that they're staying 6 feet away from our customers and other folks as well. Because there really is, the focus on making sure that I said it's 105 degrees out, but it isn't summer yet. And we have to make sure that our system is getting ready for that. One of the things that you'll also see, and we obviously are working with our folks in the community. There's a lot of construction still going on, and we're hoping to make sure that we're not at any delays for that. But we got to make sure that we're taking all those precautions, and we also have to make sure now that we have so many people working from home and relying on that power coming to their house, that we don't have outages that we would normally do for sort of routine maintenance. We're not going to do those if we don't absolutely have to for a safety or emergency situation. So we've really adapted extremely well. And I got to tell you, when you sit here and look today that we're running our company exactly how we were, exactly from an outside perspective. I mean, we issued long-term debt just a couple weeks ago. So we were able to access the financial markets. We did our earnings calls and close and board meetings and annual meetings, and we did all those remotely. So we can run our business like this. There are some things that we could do more efficiently, but as far as us running the company, we're doing that effectively. So that puts us in a good spot that we are not rushing to, people call it return to work. Well, we are working. We call it, basically reentry. When are we going to get back into the office? And since that's going to be very complicated and we're doing this so effectively now, we've got time to manage that. So I'll stop there for give the other folks a chance to chime in.
Great. Thank you, Dave. I can tell you from my perspective, I missed the beat. We had a small power outage. It was actually brought up faster than it was when you were having everybody working at the office. So. Yeah. There are the people getting in the field. They go straight from home to field now. So we actually are finding that we're more efficient in some of those things. Great. Thank you. Wes Kramer with Raytheon, same question for you. And how are you operating in this environment?
Yeah, well, I'd like to, echo some of what Dave said, that clearly we'd like to, thank all of the first responders and all the people that are truly out there on the front lines, because that's what enables us to continue. So as Raytheon being a defense contractor, we are part of the defense industrial base, so clearly part of the essential operations. So, our number one priority when this started, first and foremost, was the safety of our workforce. And our number two priority is to continue to the best of our ability to deliver capability to our warfighters and allies around the world, but that's impossible to do without a safe workforce. And so that's where our focus has been. So where we stand right now is approximately 60% of our workforce, so about 18,000 people of the operations that I have between Tucson and Boston are working from home. So that 40% that's coming into the workplace every day represents about 12,000 employees, so about 6,000 or about 4,800 here in Tucson. And those are mainly the factory workers that are working on the lines every day. And then, of course, we have a significant amount of classified work that has to be done within our facilities on our campus. And so that's been our priority, is to really keep that workforce protected. So in order to do that, we've had a lot of lessons learned. We had some of the advantages of some of our international suppliers. And of course, now that we're part of Raytheon Technologies with Collins and Pratt & Whitney, they were experiencing it with the first parts of this in China in January and February. So we were able to quickly apply a lot of those lessons learned on social distancing. We do have mandatory wearing of masks whenever you are in close proximity to anyone else. We have now implemented temperature screening at either entry gates or building entries. I will say that's been effective across the company. We've had a handful of cases of where we've detected a higher temperature, sent the person to medical, and within a day or two they've come down with symptoms. So we've been able to prevent them from getting into the workforce. So we're seeing positive results from that. The other thing that we've really done is been a focus on contact tracing. Obviously with this number of employees, we have had some cases across the country. We've done a really good job with our global health resources to do very detailed contact tracing to make sure that anybody that was even suspect of being in close contact, we were putting them on a self-imposed 14-day quarantine. So they check in daily. And then, of course, we have different levels of deep cleaning that we do associated with every one of those cases pops up. So far, we've actually been very efficient. As Dave said, we're finding things that we're actually doing more efficiently. Our overall factory output is basically in line with what we were seeing pre-COVID. So up to this point, we've been able to maintain our contract deliveries. And so I'll kind of leave it with that for the first part here. And as you can see on the slide we put up, just a few of the things that we're doing to try to support some of the first responders. I'll point out down there in the lower right that we actually got a call, our CEO did, from the White House in right about the first part of April, that the New York City Police Department was having a shortage of Tyvek suits. And we contributed about 400, but Raytheon Technologies contributed almost 3,000 suits that were delivered within 24 hours to the New York City Police Department. And then today we just announced a commitment to 50,000 meals to Feeding America, including here in the Tucson area. And we're encouraging our employees to donate to that cause, and the company will match those donations. Over to you.
Well, that's impressive, Wes. Thank you for that. And frankly, I'm a little shocked that when you said 60% of your people are working from home, that's quite a few.
It's a lot of bandwidth, but Lisa's been great. I mean, delivering bandwidth. So, but as an example, we have to go in through VPN. When this started, we had 5,000 VPN sockets across the company, and now we have 100,000 VPN sockets. So in 2 weeks, we brought up, 95,000 additional VPN sockets, and we're having pretty regular usage across Raytheon Technologies of about 100,000 users a day that are on VPN.
Well, what a perfect segue. Lisa Lavallo, how are you operating? It's got to be a unique environment. You're used to being in everybody's home. So we're curious to see what you got.
Here's some of the things to what Wes and Dave said in terms of our focus on employee safety of our customers. How is our network functioning? Is our infrastructure working the way we need it to serve the greater community? And then what can we do to help Southern Arizona or the markets throughout the Cox footprint? So I would say the biggest difference in what I've heard so far is that we have always gone into people's houses, right? So when you call up and you want to connect your internet, a Cox truck arrives and a Cox superhero gets out of his truck and goes in your home and connects you. And it feels so good. Or when your internet's not working or your video product isn't working, in comes our superhero again and fixes it. So about 5-6 weeks ago, we stopped going into customer homes. And so that's a major change for us. That's a big point of contact that we're used to having with customers. And so we went from about 40% of our customers confident enough to install themselves to 96% of our customers installing themselves with an 85% success rate. Wow. And to do that, we've adopted a lot of new technologies very rapidly. We've got a virtual technician now. Our technicians are very, very creative in terms of using their FaceTime and their cell phones to stay outside of the home and communicate with customers. We have this new technology called Help Lightning, which allows text to talk to text and text to talk to customers so that we can problem solve without being together. So what's really been fantastic in terms of our business model is that our employees have really gotten creative. If we give them a little bit of technology, they're totally running with it. And that's obviously something we've been hoping for a long time, was to have a partnership with our customers that would allow us to have more of a hands-off automated installation process. And this virus has accelerated that model for us very, very dramatically. We're never going to go back in the same way into people's homes. And customers don't really want us. We've got our guys decked out in PPE from head to toe. A service call looks like a hazmat scene. And so, it's 110 degrees out and you're all decked out in PPE. It's pretty uncomfortable for our employees as well. So we only really want to go into the house if we absolutely have to. On the commercial side, going into hospitals or going into businesses, that's a different environment than going to someone's home. So we still are entering businesses when necessary and making sure that key critical companies get the kind of, platinum service that they need and support that they need. But all in all, I would say, I've got to really hand it to our workforce who's adopted this agility. They've been very, very agile in terms of being able to adjust and going forward in order to keep them safe and keep customers safe, because the tail of this COVID thing is long. We're going to have to get better and better and better at trying new ways to interact with our customers. And on the advertising side and on the sales side of our business, which also requires touching customers, they've really transitioned also to using technology like Teams, like Skype for Business, to stay close to customers that they need to have a relationship with. Our advertising business has taken a hit. Businesses are closed. They're not going to advertise if they're not open. Cox Automotive, which is a sister company to Cox Communications, the automotive business has been hit pretty hard. So there are parts of our company that are really struggling and other parts of our company that this virus has helped us adopt new ways. So it's a mixed bag for us as a business. But I would say, in terms of Cox Communications here in Southern Arizona, our network is performing very well. Our employees are adapting very rapidly. We've had no cases of COVID in our workforce. And now we're getting ready, as Dave said, the reentry process. And about 85% of our workforce in Southern Arizona and nationally is working from home or starting from home. As Dave said, instead of going to the office and get your truck and then go, or step into the office, do a huddle and go back out, they're going from their home right to their first call and never coming into the office. So that's a kind of a summary of where we are.
Well, great. That surprises me too. Let me ask you this: does I sort of like this. I shouldn't ask you. I'll just comment. I like, because I can set the 4-hour window when I hook up my cable going forward, right? Thank you, Lisa. Ian, same question to you. You've got a unique animal in construction. You can't necessarily do it remotely, can you? For the most part, but how's it going?
Yeah, that's true. That's true. We're kind of unique in that we're building a prototype on a unique site almost every time we go. It's interesting. We're actually thankful, that we were named one of the essential industries, and we were allowed to continue working even through the early days of the shutdown. So, really, frankly, grateful that we've been able to continue our business, continue our service to our customers. But of the folks who we have out there on our project sites, I would tell you that 95% of the people are continuing to go to work. And again, everything is a site-adapted prototype is how I describe it. So everybody is still on the job sites going to work on a day-by-day basis. Of our employees, we probably have about 90% of our employees are actually out of job sites, and only 10% are in the offices. But of those 10% we have in the offices, but we probably have the majority, certainly the majority, I would say probably 90% of the employees we have in our office that are traditionally office assigned, working remote, working from home. So doing what we can to thread that needle between getting work in place and then also trying to keep people appropriately distanced. As far as the job sites go, we're taking a number of measures. We're trying to do screenings of people coming onto the job site, make sure everybody's healthy before they come to work. We're installing new hand washing stations, even out on project sites where we're just pushing dirt around, but just trying to give people the opportunity to stay as healthy as possible and protect the people that are out there. So it sounds like we've got a lot of the similar things going on that some of the other folks in the call are trying to address. Only the thing that we've been trying to do too, we've been trying to recognize when people have a unique circumstance that requires some accommodation. We have people who all of a sudden they have kids home that they didn't expect. They need to have a little more time trying to do some childcare at home, trying to make accommodations for people who are in that kind of unique situation. If they have two people in a household who are working and we can make accommodations for someone to work at home, we're trying to do that. And also just trying to look out a little bit beyond where our business is and trying to make sure that we recognize the people who aren't like us, the people who are unable to work. We've actually made a corporate decision to, we have a Sun Foundation, a foundation where we give out charitable grants on a quarterly basis. We actually decided, even though we just passed out the grants in the last few weeks, we went ahead and advanced our third quarter grants out into the community, trying to focus on people who are food insecure. We know that there's a lot of people out there looking for a hand, and so we focused on the community food banks and advanced our third quarter donations to do so.
Thank you, Ian, and congratulations on that. Well, it appears that from everything I've heard that it's not business as usual, but you're all operating, you're all busy. Well, that's encouraging because a lot of times we're reading where, maybe some of the retail businesses or others, they're all very busy. Let me delve into another question that you've really set up very nicely, and I'll start, Wes, with you because you touched on it. And that is, have there been any trends or lessons that you've learned throughout this process that have really impacted your business? Maybe a two-part question. And what trends will carry forward post-pandemic?
Yeah, no, I think, there's always some silver lining or aspects to this, even in adversity. But I will say that, since kind of the topic of today is to talk about, for other businesses that may have been shut down, of the getting back to work. And I think that, we all recognize, and even within Raytheon, we're going to take a pretty measured approach to bringing people back, because we are actually operating pretty efficiently right now. So I'm not in a major rush to bring masses back. We're going to selectively bring people back, and we're kind of using the phrase by invitation only. We'll bring people back at kind of a measured way on that. I foresee that, there will be stops and starts going forward. I mean, hopefully not in the Tucson community, but I think across the country, there's going to be small flare-ups. And if it's not right now, it'll be when we get back into the fall season or something. So I think it's important to share some of these lessons learned. And I'll say one of the most important lessons we learned right at the start is, I would say, jump on cases quickly. So, we had a couple of employees that either reported symptoms or tested positive. And one of the things we did was really be aggressive on the contact tracing. And then for anybody that they came in contact with, even if there was a little bit of doubt, we went ahead and put them into the 14-day self-quarantine and, covered the expense on that, because I couldn't take a chance of having it, go unchecked within our workforce. And a specific example, in one of our factories here in Tucson, we had 2 cases in the same factory, although in different areas, within a 24-hour period. And this is a factory that runs 3 shifts and is one of our largest factories. And we actually made the decision to shut it down. It was on a Thursday afternoon. We shut it down. It's a classified factory. We brought in people in hazard suits to essentially cover up the classified equipment, and then brought in a cleaning crew and kept it over the 3-day weekend, and then brought people back and eliminated the ones that had been in contact. And the message that sent to our workforce was that it reinforced that message that really people are our greatest asset, and that they're the most important thing is the safety of our employees. And so it really reinforced that from a company perspective. But even more importantly, the employees then recognize that they play a role in protecting each other too. And I think that really kind of set us off on a very positive trend to say that, hey, we're all in this together, and the company's serious about protecting you, but we also need you to be serious about protecting each other. And so I think that set a really good tone for us. And that was a really good piece of advice that I would offer to businesses as they think about starting back up. On the things that we're going to continue to do going forward is, prior to this, we had about 6% of our workforce working from home. Now we have 60%, and we're actually being effective. So I don't ever see the day of going back to having 100% of the workforce being there. I mean, we'll cycle people through, and they may come in for meetings and once a week or every other week. And I think there'll be, much like, Cox or Electric was saying, of, going directly to your job site or directly to travel to go visit customers or suppliers and things like that. The other thing is, I will say, is we've really embraced a lot of technology, and obviously the U.S. government's our primary customer, but things that where we used to send people to suppliers to do source inspections, we're now doing that with either video or photos. We're doing more of our meetings, even classified meetings, through classified VTCs, which saves the travel time. And so we see a bunch of things here, and we're even being asked, and I will say this is where Department of Defense has led the way of saying, hey, there's some good things in this, and how do we accelerate some of these changes and use and embrace technology? And we're really using this as kind of a jumping off point. And I think it's going to be much more efficient for us, and actually a better value for the taxpayer to use more technology. And the resistance was just the way we've always done it before. And this has served as a forcing function to really allow us to move forward. And we plan on continuing that into the future.
Amazing. That's very enlightening, Wes. Lisa, same question. I'm going to go a little quicker so that we get through. So we're starting to see a lot of questions come in. So Lisa, same question for you. You touched on it in just a few minutes ago. Some of the trends you're seeing, if you could expand on that, and what do you think continues post-pandemic?
Well, I think one of the things that has been a little surprising, is a trend for sure, is how quickly consumers are adapting to this world of Zoom, Skype, and all that. It's become a necessity in our business to be able to operate in this environment and do it well and do it effectively and keep doing it and keep improving on it. So, we're not going to go back to tons and tons and tons of face-to-face, whether that's within our own buildings or within customers' offices or homes. And so, that's a trend that it's not even a trend. It's like kind of a light switch went on, and boom, everyone has got a Zoom account. Everyone is using Microsoft Teams, and employees are learning how to do that on their own. And you don't have to have massive training to teach people new technology. And now there's an expectation that we do it in an excellent way. And so, I think everybody needs to embrace that and get good at it and trust that their employees can handle it. And who knows where that's going to go and how creative people are going to become and how you're going to differentiate yourself in this kind of virtual environment. So I would say, just briefly, that's one that I have found to be surprising and a trend that is just going to continue to take off. And not all those platforms are created equal. When you start making choices for your business or your organization about which type of, technology are you going to use? Are you going to use Microsoft Teams, Skype, Zoom? And we've all experienced this the last few weeks where, you get cut off in 30 minutes if some nonprofit uses Zoom because they're doing it for free and you can't have a meeting. So you're going to have to make some investments making the right choices so that your employees and your customers can interact.
Thank you. Ian, same question.
Yeah, I'll fall back and talk about one of the lessons learned, for other folks who are listening and kind of contemplating what they're going to do. As I mentioned, on our project sites, which are scattered all throughout Tucson, we have a mobile medic on site there who scans everybody who comes onto site every day. And we were frankly a little concerned that there would be some pushback on that. We have people line up at the fence going into the job sites, and one by one they come through. We have somebody who's suited up, has a respirator on, points the thermometer at their foreheads and make sure that people aren't showing up to work with a fever. We have a couple of mandatory questions we ask people, but we launched that and we frankly expected pushback, and like I said, we got it for about 2 days. And then after 2 days, we had people really thankful that we were doing that, which I thought was an interesting development. And we saw people very rapidly even go to the point where we had people who were more interested in coming to the job sites that we're screening because we were trying to keep the employees safe than were the other maybe job sites where the screening wasn't happening. So I guess I would just take a moment and encourage everybody to do what you think is right to protect your customers, to protect your employees, to protect your subcontractors. And what you'll find, I think, is that when you're showing that effort to try to keep people safe, you're going to get a better response than you might think. So that's my one lesson learned I thought I'd share.
Ian, let's say people don't bring, I forgot the term Wes used, we bring them back slowly. Some people not at all. They continue to work at home. I know quite a few of our employees like it. We won't do it full time, but it could change. I'm projecting here. It could change the amount of commercial real estate space that's needed for companies as they look in the future. How does that impact the construction firms? Just different the way you construct things, or?
Yeah, I think it's interesting. We've had a lot of conversations about what some of the impacts might be on the built environment. I look back at some of the trends that have been happening in the built environment, and people talk about the concept they call hoteling, where you might have a cubicle that you share between multiple employees as they come in and out of an office over the course of the day. So I can certainly see that trend maybe being reversed a little bit. You certainly see situations where you have data centers or call centers where people share an office space. And so there might be some places that are impacted where they might feel like they need to have more space, or maybe they're just dedicating more time doing disinfecting in between different people occupying the same workspace. They even had a conversation with somebody today who was contemplating, it was a multi-tenant office facility that they were contemplating building, and they'd set it up having a shared gym, a shared cafeteria, and what do you do with spaces like that? I mean, it makes sense. It makes a building more efficient if you do those things, but do buildings need to be thought through a little bit differently in the future? So all that combined with everything that I think everybody has recognized is that there has been, I think, a lot of people who've seen efficiency in the telecommuting that they maybe didn't expect. And so a lot of things are going to influence it, I think. I'm actually interested to see how some of this unfolds and how it impacts the way the built environment gets created.
Dave, gotta be a lot of trends that you're seeing, and this is how that impacts you.
Yeah, I really got to back up what Lisa said. It was just like throwing a light switch, and it makes you think, what were we doing 3 months ago when we would travel across the country to, we'd spend a day to go there, a day to get back for a 2 or 3 hour meeting. And just the ability to work so much more effectively and efficiently remotely. I mean, I got to say, I was probably, as far as like Skype, Zoom, Microsoft Teams, other than FaceTime with my kids and my wife, I would have to say I probably had maybe a handful of meetings like that in the last year. And now I have a handful a day. I don't have to do all of that travel, et cetera. And you guys might be thinking, well, where you got to travel, your Tucson Electric Power, but we have offices across the state. We have a small gas company that serves northern Arizona, and a small electric company that serves Mojave County and Santa Cruz County. And then we're part of a bigger entity that has a holding company with 10 utilities across North America. And we have become absolutely positively more efficient as an organization. We're able to communicate more. I have seen more of the people that I work with across North America over the past 8 weeks than I ever saw them before. And that's because I'm not spending all that time traveling or trying to figure out how to get from point A to point B. I think that that's really going to be reevaluated as we go back and re-enter our offices. But I don't think it's going to be quite as drastic or as complete as it is now. I think it will be a little bit of a hybrid, because the reason it works now, there's still a lot of human connection that needs to be made in order to build relationships and trust. And it's easy because I can look at all the pictures around here and I know y'all. I've met you. We've had conversations, over a drink or whatever. It's the same thing with your people at work. It's not like you're trying to develop a relationship on a screen. It's because we've built those relationships that we are so successful in this environment now. The question is, how do you do that on a going forward basis? How do you blend those? And Wes nailed it. It's like, look, you might be bringing people in, a couple times a month or something for group meetings, social events, whatever it is, because you have to fill in around the screens that we talk to now.
Mm-hmm.
Let's transition. Great setup for it. I'll start, Lisa, with you. And I'll editorialize for a minute, but really the question is, what challenges and or opportunities you anticipate over the next several months? You can pick both or one of them, but listening to all of you, we know that site selection and corporate real estate selection has historically favored large communities, which very large airports, top 10 passenger traffic. I'll see an opportunity where air hubs might not have the same weight as they did. But Lisa, the question for you: opportunities, challenges, the next several months.
Well, I think one of the challenges is financial. I mean, we're very busy, but we also have done a lot of things, a lot of goodwill gestures in terms of not disconnecting people, about extending free offers, getting every school child connected, taking on different credit risk. So there's a lot of that is having impact on our bottom line. So while we're busy, our revenues are taking a hit. And at some point, we're going to have to start operating like a for-profit business again, but it's not going to be till later in the year because we've made commitments to the FCC and other regulatory agencies to keep people connected. And it's the right thing to do. So we're making adjustments in our budget to accommodate for that. The other challenge I think is real is, and we've been talking about it a little bit here in terms of engagement with customers and employees, is how do you continue to maintain a culture in your company that you have esprit de corps, you have trust? How do you onboard new employees where you don't have an existing relationship with them? So how do we maintain the Cox culture? How do we maintain trust? How do we keep alignment? One of the things that has been a silver lining in this that I've heard from employees is that because we've been doing these types of team calls, and you see, I'm sitting at my bar in my front room. Some of you have been in my house, so you recognize it, but my employees have never been here. I've never seen Dave's dogs. I just saw him today. And our employees feeling like there's an intimacy that's being built amongst them as they're meeting their children who are walking by and hearing a dog bark in the back room. So there's some things I think that we can leverage as this intimacy is being built differently. But I think a challenge is the culture and how you establish a new culture without losing the things that really have made your company special. So we got to get through the financial strain this year. We hope it'll be, make these adjustments in our budget this year to accommodate for all the goodwill things we're doing. And then how as a leader and as a business owner, do you create the right culture moving forward?
Wes, same question.
Yeah, we definitely see some challenges, and I talked about, that so far, we've been able to meet our commitments and deliver on time, and we're seeing efficiencies. But I do worry about our supply base and our supply chain. We just recently published that, we've distributed about $350 million in advance payments and early payments and stuff to our supply base. About 200 million of that went to 2,500 small businesses across the country. and internationally, and including here in Arizona. And so, we've been able to piece things together here in the near term, but I start to worry, like Lisa did, of the financial impacts out in Q3 and Q4. And no one has a crystal ball to know how to accurately predict that because it's a flow-through effect. And then what we also don't know is how are things going to start back up? What's that ramp going to look like? And is there going to be fits and starts? And how deep are those fits and starts? And how long are they going to last? So I think there's a level of uncertainty around things, and that's probably one of our biggest challenges. Mm-hmm. The second challenge is that we still have a need to hire about 3,000 people this year. And I just went through earlier today, we actually have 500 interns that will be starting here over the next few weeks. And so, how do you onboard an intern? And some of them are coming from out of state or international, and we're going to have to put them through a 14-day self-quarantine. It's hard to impart the culture of an organization, the camaraderie, and really that social network and do it. It's like Dave said, it's easy to do it with people that you already know and have a relationship with. And in many ways, we're more efficient, but you can't do that forever. And, for us, continuing to hire and bring in college hires and interns is really the lifeblood and an important part of our future. So we are not canceling any of our internships. We staggered them a little bit and delayed a few so we could have a more staggered approach instead of all at once. But we're going to figure out our way through that. We're using a lot of technology. The team has come up with what I think is an incredible plan based on the environment that we're in. But it'll be interesting to see how that works out and what our conversion rate is then from interns into employees. I will say, though, that about 40% of the companies across the country have canceled their internship programs. So, the interns that we reached out to were expecting a cancellation call. We're actually thrilled to hear that they do have a summer job. And so, we want to use that and go, how do you leverage that? And then how do you work with them? Because a lot of these kids, are probably going to be able to be our best test cases and offer us great advice and ideas on how we actually do virtual onboarding and what are the things, we are going to bring them on campus for limited times, but what are the most important things that we do and how do we use that time? And I think that'll be a great model for our work from home and a longer term thing going forward.
Great. Thank you, Wes. 3,000, hiring 3,000. I heard that.
That's across the country, but yes, 3,000.
Well, we're going to do our best to get at least 2,800 of them in Tucson. Okay. Dave.
You got so many people working from home, Wes. You got room here, right? So you could probably fit all 3,000 here. That'd be perfect. So we have the same financial challenges that everyone else has. Obviously, as businesses shut down, they're using less electricity. We also have customers who are going to struggle. They've lost their jobs, et cetera. They're going to struggle paying their bills. We have to respond like every other business out there to make sure that we're taking care of our business and taking care of our customers and making sure we are keeping our employees gainfully employed as well. I got to say, probably the biggest challenge is going to be trying to figure out this whole return to the workplace situation because, I don't mean to make it sound easier than it was, but as we exited our workplaces and scattered, that's a lot easier because we were all with the background of every single one of us that has mentioned this, of making sure that we're taking care of the health and safety of our employees, customers, and community. With that as a background, we knew we could act fast, we could overreact, and it was overreacting from a safe perspective, meaning these are no regrets decisions. We might have overshot it, we might have left early, but you know what? We were going through with a policy of it's better safe than sorry. Going back in, it's going to be complicated. It's going to be a tough communication issue. How do we get people, coming back? We have people, of course, who are across the entire spectrum of being, worried to death about this to not being worried enough about it. And, we have to make sure that we're addressing that. But Joe, I want to put out the biggest opportunity that we have, and get out your pencil. You need to write this one down, because there's a lot of focus now on reshoring manufacturing. There's a lot of pushback on the international just-in-time manufacturing that we have become accustomed to because we were focusing on efficiency. And as an economy, that's what you got to do. You got to focus on efficiency. But we just, spent, billions of dollars, trillions of dollars because we focused on efficiency, not resiliency. And so we didn't have all the stuff that we needed when we needed it. And I think we're going to see more of that coming in the future. There was an executive order from the president that came out a week ago that said, hey, if you have critical infrastructure, you can't get parts from these adversary countries, which are still to be defined. But that means we should be focused on pulling that manufacturing base back to the U.S., back to Arizona, and particularly back here into southern Arizona. This is an opportune time for us to strike and say this is what people are going to be looking for. This is what the government's going to be looking for. That's what we should be focused on.
David, thanks. I couldn't agree more. The last webcast I talked about us having a pretty full pipeline. We've actually been quite busy, and the reality is we've got a handful of projects that are from outside the United States that are bringing stuff back home, and we've got to be ready for them, and we've got to look at our programs and policies to support that. Ian, I'll throw that question to you because I think it's important, challenges and opportunities, and then I want to allow some time because we're getting quite a few audience questions come in. So Ian, same question, and then we'll do some Q&A and then wrap it up.
Yeah, no, I certainly think that on the challenges side of things, again, the economics for people, but also looking at the economics for all of our institutions, whether it's the university or whether it's the city or the county or the state. There are a lot of people reporting adjustments to their revenue projections. And I think that's the big uncertainty, I think, for a lot of people, just trying to figure out when things are going to get back to normal, when the revenue streams are going to get back to normal. For my business, I'm curious to see which projects are going to move forward, which aren't. Just trying to kind of get a gauge of when things will be a little bit more predictable. I think those are some of the big challenges that are out there. I think that as far as the go back to work efforts, I think the only thing I'd add to other people have to say is that we're taking a similar type of measured approach and trying to bring people back. Just to hit that item very quickly. On the opportunity side, if I could maybe focus on that for just 1 second, I do think that we are going to need to be extremely creative, and I think we're going to need to be extremely aggressive trying to find the ways that we can capitalize on some of the opportunities that you mentioned, Joe. We've got businesses who are coming in, and you look at a place like Tucson, weather's great, you got stable power supply, you got great communications, you got Wi-Fi everywhere. Right. I mean, but it could be a more appealing opportunity or a way that Tucson could feel that it hasn't before. And I do think that there are going to be opportunities when you look at different stimulus packages. I know that we saw that in the last recession, is that the government was trying to do a lot to stimulate the economy. They did a lot of that through building programs, either through NAVFAC or the Army Corps of Engineers. But I think that they're trying to gear some more of the stimulus packages to maybe some more creative solutions, and making sure that we're nimble and able to take advantage of some of those things so that we can, capture whatever stimulus we can in our local economy to get people back to work.
Yeah, great feedback. I think nimble, able to adapt, and I agree with all that. We're going to have to think bold for our future. I think that the opportunity can definitely outweigh the challenge. Well, let's take some questions. I don't think we're out of time from the audience. I have in the control center here, questions coming in. The first question is for Wes Kramer. Wes, the question reads: Raytheon was recently awarded contracts to develop the Missile Defense Agency's next generation interceptor with a long-range standoff weapon. Question is, how will these projects impact Raytheon's operations here in Tucson?
Well, so the long-range standoff weapon was one of the programs that we were competing for, and a significant amount of the investment that we've made here over the last couple of years was in preparation and to position ourselves for this award. So a significant amount of the capital investment, a large portion of working to put a new electric substation on the campus was all around an anticipation of being able to position ourselves to win this award. So I think a lot of the prep work and capital and investment infrastructure has been in place. Clearly, this, like any other big win, this is one of those, 30-year franchise kinds of things. So it provides, if anything, a lot of stability for the workforce. And so, this is contemplated in the hiring plans that I talked about. And I think, the big thing is the long-term stability that it brings in winning these kinds of franchise programs like this.
Congratulations, Grant. Next question, Ian, I guess. Sunt was recently awarded a significant project downtown at 75 East Broadway. Can you tell us about that?
Sure. No, that was, I think the quick comment I'll throw out there is that was the first ever virtual interview that I did. We frequently actually will interview for our projects and do kind of like a selection basis that includes our qualifications. And that was the first time we'd ever done one, I think, as a company in an online format. So that was unique. But no, it's one of those. I would tell you the best thing about that project is that, so A of all, we're in the middle of this global pandemic. We had an interview scheduled, and there was still a compelling push to still host the interview, even if virtually. So I thought it said a lot about people's willingness to try to move projects forward in Tucson. And everything that we're hearing from that client and from that team is that things are progressing in a positive way, and if that project should come to fruition and get started on the timeline that they want. So that to me would be one of those silver linings in terms of the conversations. I know I've been talking to some other contractors in town, even contractors across the country. Financing is an issue in some places, but ideally we're going to see a pretty cool 19-story building across the street from Dave here.
Yeah, Ian, I'm more than happy to give up my view to see that construction in Tucson.
Appreciate the support.
Here's a question, and maybe Dave, since you're up, you can address first, then we'll go to Lisa. But the question is, how long do the panelists think it will be necessary to maintain their current high level of anti-COVID precautions?
Oh boy, isn't that the question of the day? To be honest, I don't know. The guidance is all over the map, and I think the most prudent thing that we can do is move in little small steps. And I think that's what you've heard from the rest of the panelists as well. Is we've got to look at the data. We've got to, obviously put our employees safe. There's not a whole lot of things that we can control, but we can control this, because this is us reacting to how we bring people back. It's up to us on the timeline, the processes and procedures. So we just need to take it slow and be very cautious.
Lisa, what do you think?
Yeah, we're the same. I mean, until there's a testing regime in Arizona or in Southern Arizona that we can count on to help us manage our business differently, or until a vaccine becomes widely available, I think we're going to go very, very slowly and very, very cautiously. Same thing that Dave said. We see this as a long-term challenge.
I'll find one more question. I'm going to combine them. And Wes, let me ask this, because you sort of talked about it with your intern, but you can just reiterate. But the question is, in a couple different forms, have your hiring plans changed?
No, not really. I mean, that was what we had said back in Q1, and we just updated our forecasts and demands, and that's really consistent with what we said. Now, I think the one variable in there is what we are seeing is lower attrition, and I think obviously in this kind of an environment, and our hiring demand is based on an assumed attrition number. So, assuming that the attrition continues to decline, we may scale that back slightly, but the total employment number would remain constant. It's just the number that we would have to fill.
Great, thank you. Ian, same question.
So I think the only thing we did in terms of adjusting time frames is similar to what Wes was describing. Is we did adjust timelines for our interns coming in for the summer. Don't have nearly as many as Raytheon has coming in, but across the company at each of our locations, we pushed back the start date for our internships just to try to get our feet under us a little bit and get a little bit past what some of the projected peaks were. As a company, we are watching the markets to see really how things ultimately are going to impact the flow of construction services. So we're certainly monitoring where things are and trying to see if there's going to be an impact across our business. Again, like I say, the news that you just shared that the projects in Tucson seem to be moving forward right now. So we're thankful for that. But we all have to continue to adapt. I think the ultimate answer to any of these questions is going to be come up with a plan. The plans are subject to change based on what goes down. So I think we're all trying to stay flexible.
Well, Laura's flashing me saying, Joe, you gotta go. So I want to give you each, all of you, a 15-second opportunity at the most to give us words of wisdom, anything you think this group should hear. Dave, we started with you. We're going to end with you. So can we put you on the spot for some real quick thoughts to wrap this up?
15 seconds. Put your people's health and safety first, and that will get us to the right spot. That's basically the main thing. 3 seconds to spare.
Lisa.
Exactly what Dave said.
That was 3 seconds.
I beat Dave on that too. So no, I completely concur.
Wes, anything to add?
Yeah, I would just tag on to that and say, and part of keeping that workforce safe and healthy is making sure that they're taking some time off. What we're seeing is people are working, 16 hours a day. They're available on their phone. And I'm telling people, hey, shut your phone off, set some personal boundaries, spend some time with your family, do some other things. I know maybe you can't travel, but at least, don't dedicate 110% to work. You need to pace yourself. This is a marathon, not a sprint.
And Ian, you get the last word.
Stay flexible. That's the first thing. And last thing is just along the lines of what I mentioned earlier. We did something to protect our customers. We were a little worried that those customers were going to be concerned by our safety protocol, but we found that people actually embraced it. So embrace the safety aspects and stay flexible.
Thank you. Listen, I want to thank all of our panelists for taking time out of your very busy schedules to share very valuable information. I speak on behalf of the entire organization. Thank you. As I had mentioned at the beginning of this webcast, Suncorder has embarked in an effort to examine our long-term economic development strategies for the region. And we're going to be doing some future webcasts, but they're going to be mini webcasts in small groups. In the targeted industries, small groups of companies, because we need your help. We want you to provide feedback and data and expertise as we begin this journey of preparing for what the economy and the opportunities look like in the post-COVID crisis. So again, thank you to our panelists. I thank you to all of our participants. I hope you found this valuable. Again, this information will be posted on our website. I thank you to all the people working on the front lines, like our first responders. And I say God bless and stay safe. And we'll talk soon. Thank you.